Jill Stein doing a town hall on CNN. Bless their hearts. Good job doing a town hall for the Green Party. Give American people some options and have them hear them out. So first, Bernie Sanders supporters are, of course, unsure which direction to go in. Now, it appears most of them will go to Hillary Clinton. At least that's what the polling indicates. But, of course, the Green Party candidate, Jill Stein, is going to make a pitch for those supporters. So let's hear her out.
All the work you did and the incredible passion and vision and blood, sweat, and tears that you put into that campaign, that lives on. And Bernie himself said, it's a movement, it's not a man. And it's clear Hillary does not represent what you were working for. Our campaign has been here from the start. Many people have looked to us from Bernie's campaign as Plan B, so that if they ran into trouble, they could continue building this revolutionary campaign, but now all the stronger for being inside of a revolutionary party that supports the work that you're doing and will continue to build it until we prevail.
So it's a perfectly rational argument to make. Plan B does make you think of not wanting to get pregnant with someone, or here in LA, a strip club. But maybe that's just me. But overall, you get what she's saying. If you're a real progressive and Bernie Sanders didn't win, why wouldn't you go to the other clear progressive in the race? Certainly fair enough. Now, what does she think about Hillary Clinton? Uh-oh, drums. Let's watch.
Given the way our political system works, effectively, you could help Donald Trump like Ralph Nader helped George Bush in 2000. How could you sleep at night?
I will have trouble sleeping at night if Donald Trump is elected. I will also have trouble sleeping at night if Hillary Clinton is elected.
Damn. I guess that's the people's, or the green elbow. You've heard of the green thumb? Not really. That's from a long time ago. The green elbow from the sky. All right. More on why Hillary Clinton is the wrong choice.
As despicable as Donald Trump's words are, I find Hillary Clinton's actions and track record is very troubling. So Donald Trump, bashes immigrants and is a xenophobic and racist loudmouth. But Hillary Clinton, has been promoting these wars that have killed 1 million black and brown people. And Hillary, in fact, has supported many of the White House policies of deportation and detentions. As disturbing as Donald Trump's talk is, I find Hillary Clinton's track record is actually very much of concern, too. This politics of fear that tells you've got to vote against the person you most dislike or the person you are most afraid of, that politics of fear has a track record, because a lot of people have been, that's been like the prevailing mythology. You got to vote your fears, not your values. And what has that delivered? All the reasons you're told to vote for the lesser evil, because you didn't want the expanding wars, you didn't want the meltdown of the climate, or the Wall Street bailouts, or the deportation of immigrants. That's exactly what we've gotten by allowing ourselves to be silenced. So in my view, we need to reject the lesser evil and fight for the greater good, like our lives depend on it, because in fact they do.
Damn. She's been sharpening that people's elbow for quite some time. Okay, so let's break this down. Number one, great point on the politics of fear, because the guy who practices politics of fear the most is Donald Trump. He goes around saying, oh, I'm the only one who can keep you safe, and watch out for the Mexicans, the Muslims, etc. You all know that. Everybody knows that. But there's also the politics of fear that's a little bit more subtle, where you say, well, Donald Trump's such a monster that you can't vote for him. Hence, you must vote for Hillary Clinton. So that's a different kind of politics of fear, and it's very fair to point that out. Okay, now, point number two is actions versus talk. I think that Donald Trump's talk is very, very dangerous because he's running for president. If he wasn't, and he's just back to being a reality show host, well, okay, the actions of Hillary Clinton or anyone else is far more important than the talk of Donald Trump. But if he's going to be president, that talk gets turned into action, and that is deeply worrying. Now, you want to have a discussion about what's worse, the Iraq war that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, for example, or what Donald Trump is promising to do, well, that is an interesting conversation. That's, by the way, not an open and shut case, because that Iraq war also then led to the rise of ISIS and has unleashed terrors and monsters into the world that we warned you about, but they didn't listen, including the Democrats, including Hillary Clinton, who voted for that war. Now, having said that, Donald Trump is a danger to the republic in things like not believing in freedom of the press, not believing in our laws, and says, I'll break the laws and I'll torture people and I'll order the military to do illegal actions and perhaps kill the family members of people who I think are terrorists. Doesn't believe in the Constitution that we should not establish a religion, we should not discriminate against any religion, just doesn't believe in the American style of government and could shred our Constitution. So it's not an easy question. It really isn't. And so, so I say that to my progressive friends who think it's super easy. Oh, lesser of two evils is still evil, and I'm done with that conversation. No, I think that you're not done with that conversation. Nonetheless, you have to make a choice here. So on that difficult question, which if it was just Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, I would say is not a difficult question. Despite the votes of Hillary Clinton and the things that she's done, she also has many progressive positions, and Donald Trump has none of those. That's a no-brainer. But it's not just necessarily Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. That's why a lot of people are having trouble deciding. Gary Johnson's also in the race. Evan McMullin, such as he is also in the race. Some random dude that Republicans picked decided to try to challenge Donald Trump in Utah. But Jill Stein is in the race. So, look, I have not yet quite made up my mind on what is my official policy or endorsement or any stuff like that. And I think I don't believe in endorse because I think they're nonsense. What does that mean? Okay, I endorse someone, right? But I think that Jill Stein is actually significantly to the left of me on some issues. And some of you might love that, but I got to think that through. I don't know if that's exactly the right approach in a lot of instances, including on, for example, just canceling all student loan debt. Not free college. Like if you got student loan debt, $1.4 trillion, gone. So some of you might love that. I'm a little worried about what that might do to the economy and the different consequences that might have. Okay, but the bottom line is where I stand today is if someone asks you who you support and you actually support Jill Stein, in the polling, by God, tell them Jill Stein. The polling is not actually voting. And there's this insane system now that you have to get to 15% in order to appear in the debates. So if you support Jill Stein and you like her as a progressive, and a pollster calls you, go ahead and tell them. That's very, very important because America should hear everyone out. I would love to have her and Gary Johnson in a debate, whether I agree or disagree with them. Okay. Secondly, if you live in a clear blue or red state, nowhere near swing state, California, Alabama, and you want to vote your conscience, there's certainly a very good case to make that if your conscience dictates that you vote for Jill Stein, well, it's hard to make a case against that. It really, in terms of who actually becomes president, because the main case that Hillary Clinton's team makes to progressives is, oh, we can't have Donald Trump being president. You're right, but how I vote in Alabama or California really doesn't affect that at all. So I think there's a case to be made to go to Stein there if you support her. But in the swing states, could the vote going to Jill Stein make a difference and have Donald Trump win? At this point, it's not clear, but right now, you'd have to say it could. Now, I think that's a different scenario. Then you've got two things to consider. One is, who do you like the most? Who do you think would be the best president? And two is, who do you think is realistically going to win, and how does the practical implications of that play out? I think that's not just a perfectly fair question, that's a real question. So that's not, hey, in my theoretical world, I'd like somebody, but that vote and that choice could make a difference to America and the world. I'm not telling you which direction to go there. Some Democrats believe that people in the media have mind control, and maybe for a long time through propaganda they have. But that's not the new media. That's not how it works. I don't go like, ooh, vote for Stein, vote for Hillary, right? That's not how it works. I'm giving you your options. I want you to consider all those, and I'm glad that you're hearing out Jill Stein here because I think that that's exactly what all voters should do, hear out all their options, and then you make the call based on those considerations. Now, at least we're hearing Jill Stein a little bit more loudly and clearly. If you're not a member of the Young Turks and you're not getting the whole 2-hour show ad-free, you know what you're going to be thinking? Don't say I didn't warn you. tytnetwork.com/join. Go.